The Galactic Council chamber buzzed with nervous energy as representatives from 47 species settled into their designated seats. The massive dome overhead displayed a live feed from the outer rim territory of Kepler 442, where humanity's newest colony ship, the Terra Nova, had just dropped out of hyperspace. Ambassador Zethkar of the Vorthak Collective adjusted his crystalline breathing apparatus and leaned forward. His species had been monitoring human expansion for the past 50 cycles, and what they observed troubled him deeply. Humans were different from every other species in the galaxy. Too different. "The motion before us today," announced Council Prime Veltara, her melodic voice echoing through the chamber, "concerns the immediate quarantine of the human species pending further evaluation of their unique characteristics." A ripple of agreement passed through the assembled delegates. The hegemony representatives clicked their mandibles in approval, while the ethereal lumini flickered their light patterns in synchronized patterns of concern. Dr. Sarah Chen, Earth's sole representative on the council, stood slowly. Her small frame seemed insignificant among the towering aliens surrounding her, but her voice carried clearly through the chamber's translation systems. "Honored delegates," she began, "humanity has followed every protocol established by this council. We've shared our technology, opened our borders to peaceful contact, and contributed to galactic scientific advancement. What exactly are we being accused of?" Zethkar's throat sacs inflated with indignation. "Accused? Human Chen, your species exhibits behavioral patterns that exist nowhere else in known space. You are the only sapient race discovered that evolved as apex predators." The chamber fell silent. This was the heart of the matter that had been whispered about in diplomatic corridors for months. Humanity's predatory evolution was an anomaly that made other species deeply uncomfortable. "Every other civilization in this galaxy evolved from prey species," continued Zethkar. "We developed intelligence to hide, to cooperate, to avoid conflict. Your species developed intelligence to hunt more effectively, to kill more efficiently." Dr. Chen's jaw tightened. That was millions of years ago. "Humanity has evolved beyond those primitive instincts. Have you?" The question came from Ambassador Quilnex of the Pacifist Union, her tentacles writhing with anxiety. "Your entertainment media glorifies violence. Your sports simulate combat. Even your children play games involving warfare and competition. Your species," added another delegate, "has never known a period of true peace. In your entire recorded history, there has always been conflict somewhere on your world." Dr. Chen looked around the chamber, seeing fear in dozens of alien eyes. "Fear of her. Fear of her entire species. We've also created the greatest works of art, music, and literature the galaxy has ever seen. We've pioneered medical treatments that have saved millions of lives across dozens of worlds. You've also developed the most efficient weapons," interrupted Zethkar. "Your military technology advances faster than any other aspect of your civilization." The live feed from Kepler 442 continued to play overhead. The Terra Nova had deployed its construction drones and was beginning to establish humanity's newest colony. 50,000 human settlers were beginning their new lives, unaware that their entire species was being debated like a dangerous pathogen. Council Prime Veltara raised her hand for silence. "The question before us is not humanity's past achievements, but their future potential. Behavioral analysts from the Psychiatric Institute have prepared a comprehensive report." A holographic display materialized in the center of the chamber. Dr. Vexthai, the galaxy's leading expert on predator psychology, materialized as a shimmering projection. "Honored Council," Dr. Vexthai began, "my research into human psychology reveals disturbing patterns. Humans possess what they call adrenaline, a chemical compound that, when released, can increase their physical capabilities by up to 300%. Gasps echoed through the chamber. "Furthermore," the psychologist continued, "humans exhibit a unique psychological phenomenon called protective instinct. When their offspring or social groups are threatened, individual humans have been observed performing feats of strength and endurance that defy biological explanation." Dr. Chen stood again. "Every species protects their young. That's basic biology." "Not like humans," Dr. Vexthai replied. "Other species flee when faced with overwhelming odds. Humans attack. They become more dangerous when cornered, not less." The evidence continued to mount. Brain scans showing human neural activity during stress. Historical records of human conflicts. Analysis of human literature revealing consistent themes of struggle, conquest, and triumph over impossible odds. There is one more factor, Dr. Vextai said, his voice growing quiet. Humans are the only known species capable of what they call righteous anger. Other species flee from danger or fight for survival. Only humans fight for abstract concepts like justice, freedom, or revenge. The chamber erupted in concerned chatter. Several delegates activated their personal shields as if Dr. Chen might suddenly attack them. "This is ridiculous," Dr. Chen protested. "You're judging us based on fear and prejudice. Humanity has been peaceful in all our galactic interactions." "Because you've been the smallest player," Sethkar replied coldly. "But you're growing fast. Your population expands exponentially. Your technology develops at unprecedented rates. What happens when humanity becomes strong enough to enforce its will?" Council Prime Veltara called for order. "The preliminary evidence is concerning. However, we are a civilized body. We will not act on fear alone." She gestured to the overhead display showing the Terra Nova. "We have arranged a test, a controlled situation that will allow us to observe human behavior under stress." Dr. Chen's blood ran cold. "What kind of test?" "The colony ship is approaching a system we know to be inhabited by the Vraktar swarm. The colonists are unaware of this. We will observe how humanity responds to first contact with a hostile species." "You're using innocent civilians as test subjects." Dr. Chen's voice rose in outrage. "We're observing natural behavior," Veltara replied calmly. "If humanity truly has evolved beyond its predatory nature, the colonists will attempt peaceful contact and retreat when faced with aggression." Dr. Chen stared at the live feed, watching as the Terra Nova continued its approach to what the Council knew was a trap. 50,000 human beings were about to face the galaxy's most vicious predator species, and the Council planned to watch it happen. "This is barbaric," she whispered. "This is necessary," Sethkar replied. "The galaxy's safety depends on understanding what humanity truly is beneath your civilized facade." The chamber fell silent as all eyes turned to the overhead display. In a few hours, they would have their answer. The Council would witness, live and unedited, what happened when humanity's predator instincts were truly awakened. Captain Maria Santos stood on the bridge of the Terra Nova, watching as her ship's sensors painted a detailed picture of the Kepler 442 system. The third planet showed all the markers they'd hoped for. Oxygen-rich atmosphere, abundant water, and land masses perfect for human settlement. Approach vector locked in. "Captain," reported Lieutenant Commander James Park from the navigation console. "We'll be in orbit within 6 hours." Maria nodded, feeling the familiar mixture of excitement and responsibility that came with establishing a new colony. 50,000 people were counting on her to get this right. Families who had left everything behind for a chance at a new life among the stars. "Any signs of indigenous life?" she asked Science Officer Dr. Amanda Foster. "Negative on sapient species," Amanda replied, studying her displays carefully. "Some interesting biosignatures in the southern continent, but nothing that suggests advanced civilization." What Dr. Foster couldn't know was that her sensors were being deliberately jammed by Council technology. The Vraktar swarm had been inhabiting this system for over 2 centuries, their hive cities hidden beneath the planet's dense jungle canopies. In the Council chamber, the tension was palpable. The live feed showed the Terra Nova approaching the planet with typical human efficiency. Construction drones were already being prepared for deployment, and the colony ship's massive cargo bays were opening to reveal prefabricated habitat modules. "They're proceeding exactly as predicted," observed Dr. Vextai. "No signs of increased caution or threat assessment." Dr. Chen watched the feed with growing dread. She had tried repeatedly to establish communication with the Terra Nova, but the Council's jamming prevented any warning from reaching the ship. "You have to stop this," she pleaded with Council Prime Veltara. "Those are innocent people." "Who volunteered for the risks of space colonization," Veltara replied without emotion. "They will not be harmed unnecessarily." Ambassador Quilnex's tentacles writhed nervously. "The Vraktar are known for their brutality. Even if the humans survive first contact, the psychological trauma will reveal their true nature," Zethkar interrupted. "Either they will show the restraint and wisdom of a truly civilized species, or they will revert to their predatory instincts." On the planet's surface, something was stirring in the deep jungle. The Vraktar had detected the approaching ship hours ago. "These insectoid creatures," standing 8 feet tall with razor-sharp mandibles and natural armor plating, had evolved as the apex predator of their world. Unlike humanity, they had never developed beyond their base instincts. The swarm operated on pure biological imperative: consume, reproduce, expand. They had wiped out 17 other species on their planet before achieving spaceflight, and had destroyed 3 separate galactic contact missions over the past 50 years. Queen Zithtak, the hive mind that controlled millions of Raktar drones, sensed opportunity. New meat was descending from the sky. Soft, weak creatures that would provide excellent biomass for the next breeding cycle. Aboard the Terra Nova, Captain Santos was reviewing the final deployment checklist when Communications Officer Lieutenant Sarah Kim's voice cut through the bridge chatter. "Captain, I'm picking up some unusual electromagnetic signatures from the planet's surface." Maria frowned. "Unusual how?" "Organized patterns. Almost like communication networks." Dr. Foster quickly ran additional scans. "I'm not reading any technological signatures. Could be natural phenomena. Some crystalline formations can create electromagnetic resonance." Captain Santos trusted her science officer's expertise, but something nagged at her. 20 years in space had taught her to listen to her instincts, and right now those instincts were screaming that something was wrong. "Run a full spectrum analysis," she ordered. "I want to know what's down there before we commit to landing." In the council chamber, Ambassador Zethkar leaned forward with interest. "The human captain is showing caution. Perhaps they are more evolved than we feared." Dr. Chen felt a brief surge of hope. If Captain Santos detected the threat and withdrew, it might prove humanity's peaceful intentions to the council. But that hope was quickly crushed. The Terra Nova's enhanced scans were still being blocked by council technology. No matter how carefully they searched, they would find no evidence of the waiting swarm. After 30 minutes of fruitless scanning, Captain Santos made her decision. "Deploy the advance team. 50 personnel, full hazmat protocols until we confirm the atmosphere is safe." The first shuttles launched from the Terra Nova's bay, carrying advanced scouts, scientists, and engineers, tasked with establishing the initial landing zone. Among them was Dr. Michael Torres, a xenobiologist excited about the possibility of discovering new life forms. As the shuttles descended through the planet's atmosphere, the Vraktar swarm mobilized. Queen Zithtak's mental commands rippled through the hive network. The humans would be allowed to land. Let them establish a foothold, become comfortable, lower their guard, then the swarm would strike. The first shuttle touched down in a clearing that seemed perfect for their needs. Level ground, fresh water nearby, and rich soil that would support their agricultural modules. Dr. Torres was among the first to step onto the alien soil, his instruments already scanning for signs of life. Atmospheric composition confirmed safe, reported environmental specialist Lisa Chang. Oxygen levels optimal, no detected toxins or pathogens. The advance team began their work with practiced efficiency. Emergency shelters were erected, scientific equipment deployed, and a secure perimeter established. Everything proceeded exactly according to protocol. In the jungle, millions of compound eyes watched the humans work. The Vraktar had never encountered a species like this before. These creatures moved with purpose and coordination, but showed none of the territorial aggression that marked most sapient species. They appeared to be prey. Queen Zithtak decided to test them. A small group of Vraktar drones, no more than 20, began moving through the jungle toward the human landing site. They made no attempt at stealth, allowing their chittering calls and the sound of their movement through the undergrowth to carry clearly to human ears. Dr. Torres was the first to hear them. "Did you catch that sound? Almost like insects, but much larger." Security Chief Robert Hayes immediately went on alert. A former military officer, he had learned to trust unusual sounds in alien environments. All personnel, defensive positions, unknown contact approaching from the southwest. The humans reacted with military precision that surprised even themselves. Within seconds, the landing site transformed from a peaceful scientific expedition into a fortified position. Weapons were drawn, defensive barriers erected, and communications established with the orbiting ship. In the council chamber, the delegates watched with fascination as the humans demonstrated their organizational capabilities under pressure. "Observe their formation," noted Dr. Vextai. No hesitation, no debate. They moved from peaceful exploration to defensive posture in under 10 seconds. The Vraktar scouts emerged from the tree line, their massive forms silhouetted against the alien sunset. 8 feet of chitinous armor, razor-sharp claws and mandibles that could shear through steel. They stopped just at the edge of the clearing, studying the humans. Dr. Torres stepped forward slowly, his hands visible and empty. Despite every instinct screaming at him to run, he approached the aliens with scientific curiosity and diplomatic hope. "Hello," he said clearly, knowing his words were being translated by the universal communicator. "We come in peace. We are explorers from another world." The lead Vraktar tilted its head, compound eyes reflecting the last rays of sunlight. For a moment there was silence. Then it clicked its mandibles once and spoke in a voice like grinding glass. "Meat speaks. How interesting." The words hit Dr. Torres like a physical blow. Meat speaks. The universal translator carried not just the words but the underlying meaning. To the Vraktar, humans weren't fellow sapient beings. They were food that happened to make noise. Security Chief Hayes stepped closer to Torres, his weapon ready but not yet aimed. "Doctor, step back slowly." But Dr. Torres held his ground even as sweat beaded on his forehead. "You have intelligence, language, technology. We can communicate. There must be common ground between our species." The lead Vraktar's mandibles spread wider, revealing rows of serrated cutting teeth. "Common ground? Yes, you stand on it. Soon you will be buried in it." In the council chamber, the delegates watched with growing horror as the true nature of the situation became clear. The Vraktar weren't just hostile. They were actively predatory in a way that even carnivorous council species found disturbing. "This is worse than I anticipated," whispered Ambassador Quilnex. "The Vraktar view humans as nothing more than prey animals." Dr. Chen gripped the arms of her chair. "You have to intervene now. This isn't a test anymore, it's a massacre waiting to happen." "The test continues," Zethkar replied coldly. "Now we will see what humans truly are when faced with an existential threat." On the planet's surface, the situation deteriorated rapidly. The Vraktar scout who had spoken stepped forward, its claws extending to full length. Behind it, the other scouts spread out in a hunting formation that spoke of millions of years of predatory evolution. "All personnel, fall back to defensive positions," Hayes ordered, his military training taking over. "Do not fire unless fired upon." Dr. Torres continued his desperate attempt at diplomacy. "Wait, we don't have to be enemies. Our species could work together, share knowledge." The lead Vraktar moved with shocking speed. One moment it was 10 feet away. The next, its claws were whistling through the air where Torres's head had been. Only Hayes's quick action, tackling the scientist to the ground, saved his life. "Contact! Contact!" Hayes shouted into his communicator. "Hostile indigenous life forms. Requesting immediate evacuation." Aboard the Terra Nova, Captain Santos felt her heart rate spike as the reports flooded in. "How many hostiles?" "Unknown, Captain. Visual contact with 20. But movement signatures suggest many more in the jungle." Maria's mind raced through the possibilities. Standard protocol called for immediate withdrawal when faced with hostile indigenous species. But 50 of her people were on the ground and the shuttles would need time to reach them. "Launch all available shuttles," she ordered. "Combat loadout. We're bringing our people home." In the jungle, Queen Zithtak felt amusement ripple through the hive mind. The soft creatures were calling for help. How predictable. Soon more meat would descend from the sky, making the harvest even more bountiful. She sent new commands through the neural network. More drones began moving through the jungle toward the human position. Not just the small scouting force, but hunting parties armed with bioweapons and natural armor that could deflect most energy weapons. On the ground, the human advance team fought for their lives. The initial diplomatic contact had dissolved into chaos as more Vraktar emerged from the jungle. These creatures moved like nothing the humans had ever seen. Part insect, part nightmare, completely alien in their predatory grace. Dr. Torres, his scientific training warring with primal terror, found himself behind an overturned supply crate. "They're not just intelligent," he gasped into his communicator. "They're specifically evolved to hunt other sapient species." "What do you mean?" Captain Santos's voice crackled through the comm. "Their hunting formations, their weapons, their psychology. Everything about them is designed to prey on species like us. They've done this before." Security Chief Hayes coordinated the defense with grim efficiency. His team, though outnumbered, managed to establish overlapping fields of fire that kept the Vraktar at bay. But he could see more movement in the jungle. Many more, Captain. I count at least 200 hostiles converging on our position. We need those shuttles now. ETA 4 minutes, Santos replied. Hold your position. In the council chamber, the delegates watched in fascination as the human defense took shape. Despite being outnumbered 10-1 by apex predators, the humans weren't breaking. They weren't fleeing in panic or surrendering. Remarkable, observed Dr. Vexthai. Under extreme stress, they're becoming more organized, not less. Ambassador Zethkar studied the tactical display. Look at their formation. They're not just defending, they're preparing to counterattack. Indeed, Hayes had positioned his team not just to survive, but to take advantage of the Vraktar's overconfidence. When the aliens inevitably charged, they would face a crossfire that would maximize casualties among the attackers. This is not typical prey behavior, noted one of the hegemony representatives. Most species would have fled by now. Dr. Chen watched with a mixture of pride and terror as her fellow humans demonstrated exactly what the council feared. Humans didn't become less dangerous when threatened. They became more dangerous. The first wave of Vraktar attacks came at sunset. 50 bio-enhanced hunters charged the human position with coordinated precision. Their natural armor absorbed the first volleys of human weapons fire, and their speed closed the distance faster than the humans had anticipated. But Hayes had prepared for this. Fall back to secondary positions, he ordered. Execute Plan Bravo. The humans abandoned their initial defensive line and retreated to a secondary position they had prepared deeper in their perimeter. As the Vraktar pursued, they found themselves channeled into a killing ground where human weapons could achieve maximum effect. The battle was brief, but vicious. When it ended, 30 Vraktar lay dead, while the humans had suffered only 3 casualties. More importantly, they had captured several Vraktar bioweapons and begun analyzing their effectiveness. Adaptive behavior, Dr. Vexthai noted with growing concern. They're learning from the encounter and modifying their tactics in real time. Dr. Torres, his xenobiologist training overriding his fear, was already examining the alien weapons. Captain, these bioweapons are specifically designed to cause maximum pain and terror. The Vraktar don't just kill, they torture their prey before consumption. Captain Santos felt something cold settle in her stomach. These weren't just hostile aliens. They were sadistic predators who enjoyed the suffering of their victims. How many more are out there? She asked. Long-range sensors are picking up massive movement throughout the jungle, reported the ship's tactical officer. Estimate 3,000 to 5,000 hostiles converging on the landing zone. In the council chamber, Ambassador Quillnex made a sound of distress. 5,000? Against 50 humans? This has gone beyond a test. It's genocide. But Zethkar was studying the human responses with growing unease. Look at their biometric readings. Their stress hormones should be causing panic, but instead they're becoming calmer, more focused. Dr. Chen recognized what the others were seeing. Humanity's greatest evolutionary advantage wasn't their intelligence or their technology. It was their ability to function under extreme stress. When other species panicked or fled, humans adapted and overcame. On the ground, Hayes received the tactical update with grim determination. 3,000 to 5,000 hostiles inbound. ETA unknown. He looked around at his team. 47 humans armed with standard exploration equipment, facing an army of nightmare predators on an alien world. By any rational measure, they were doomed. But humans had never been particularly rational when their backs were against the wall. Listen up, Hayes announced. We're not just fighting for our lives anymore. We're fighting to get home and warn our people about what's out here. These things have probably wiped out other species before us. We're not going to let them do it again. The response from his team was immediate and unified. Fear transformed into determination. Desperation became resolve. In that moment, 50 humans stopped being an exploration team and became something far more dangerous. They became humanity at war. The shuttles from the Terra Nova arrived to find a battlefield that defied explanation. The human landing zone had been transformed into a fortress of improvised defenses, salvaged alien technology, and devastating tactical positions. What should have been a massacre had become something else entirely. Commander Lisa Park, leading the rescue mission, stared at her scanner readouts in disbelief. Hayes, what the hell is going on down there? I'm reading massive Raktar casualties, but your team is still at 47 souls. Hayes's voice crackled back, steady despite the circumstances. We've learned to speak their language, Commander. Turns out they understand violence just fine. In the 6 hours since first contact, the human advance team had undergone a transformation that would have terrified the Council if they fully understood it. Working with salvaged alien bioweapons, improvised explosives from mining equipment, and tactical innovations born of desperation, they had turned the tables on their attackers. Dr. Torres, the xenobiologist who had tried to make peaceful contact, was now coordinating the analysis of Raktar biology to identify weak points. His scientific mind had adapted to warfare with frightening efficiency. Their exoskeleton is weaker at the joint connections, he reported to Hayes, and their compound eyes are vulnerable to bright lights. I've rigged some portable floodlights that should disorient them. Environmental specialist Lisa Chang had become an expert in alien biochemistry. I've isolated the toxin from their bioweapons. We can synthesize a neutralizing agent from our medical supplies. Every member of the team had found ways to contribute to their survival that went far beyond their original specializations. The communications officer had jury-rigged long-range sensors to track incoming attacks. The geologist was manufacturing explosives from local mineral deposits. The botanist had identified several native plants that were toxic to Raktar physiology. In the council chamber, the transformation was visible in real time through their monitoring systems. Ambassador Zethkar studied the tactical displays with growing alarm. They're not just surviving, he observed. They're winning. The Raktar had attacked in 3 separate waves, each larger than the last. Each time they had encountered humans who had learned from the previous encounter and adapted their defenses accordingly. What had begun as 50 confused explorers was becoming a military unit, with terrifying effectiveness. Queen Zithtak herself was beginning to feel something she had never experienced before: uncertainty. The soft creatures from the sky were not behaving like any prey species in her genetic memory. Instead of fleeing or submitting, they were fighting back with increasing skill. More disturbing was their apparent ability to rapidly understand and adapt to Raktar tactics. Her scouts reported that the humans were now using captured bioweapons with greater proficiency than some Raktar warriors. They had analyzed Raktar communication patterns and were beginning to predict attack strategies. This is impossible, chittered her chief war leader. Prey does not learn to hunt the hunter, but the evidence was undeniable. The humans had killed over 300 Raktar warriors while suffering only 12 casualties. They were systematically stripping bioweapons and armor from the dead, improving their own capabilities with each engagement. Dr. Chen watched the proceedings with a mixture of pride and horror. You wanted to see humanity's true nature, she said to the assembled council. This is it. We don't just survive threats, we adapt to them, learn from them, and overcome them. By becoming as savage as their attackers, Zethkar replied, but his voice carried uncertainty now. No, Dr. Chen corrected, by becoming whatever is necessary to protect innocent lives. The truth of that statement became clear as the rescue shuttles attempted to land. The Raktar, frustrated by their inability to break the human defenses, had shifted tactics. Instead of attacking the fortified position, they began targeting the incoming rescue craft. Captain Santos watched from the Terra Nova's bridge as Raktar flyers, a winged subspecies they hadn't encountered before, swarmed her shuttles. The rescue mission was turning into a disaster. All shuttles abort landing. Return to ship, she ordered, but Hayes's voice cut through the comm channel. Negative, Captain. We can handle the flyers. With what? You don't have anti-aircraft weapons. We do now. What happened next would be studied in military academies for generations. The human ground team had somehow converted mining equipment and salvaged Raktar bioweapons into improvised surface-to-air systems. Using Dr. Torres's understanding of Raktar physiology and Chang's chemical analysis, they had created weapons specifically designed to target the flying subspecies. The first volley brought down 8 Raktar flyers. The second volley cleared the sky entirely. Commander Park's shuttle touched down in a landing zone that had been carved from the alien jungle through human ingenuity and determination. What she found there challenged everything she thought she knew about her own species. My God, she whispered, looking around at the organized chaos of the human position. You've built a fortress, Hayes nodded grimly. And an armory, a field hospital, a research lab, and a communications center. We've been busy. The rescue operation proceeded with military precision that impressed even the Council observers. The humans didn't simply evacuate. They conducted a fighting withdrawal that left behind booby traps, false intelligence, and a clear message to the Vraktar. Humanity was not prey. As the last shuttle lifted off, Hayes triggered the explosives his team had placed throughout their position. The detonation could be seen from orbit, a pillar of fire that consumed the landing zone and everything the Vraktar might have learned from studying human equipment. In the council chamber, the delegates sat in stunned silence as the Terra Nova prepared to depart the system. Ambassador Quillnex was the first to speak. They were outnumbered 50-1 by apex predators, she said quietly. And they won. They didn't just win, Dr. Vextai corrected, studying his psychological analysis reports. They dominated. In less than 12 hours, they transformed from peaceful explorers into a military force that drove off an entire swarm. The implications were staggering. If 50 humans could accomplish this, what could 50,000 do? What about 50 million? Zethkar turned to Dr. Chen, his crystalline breathing apparatus cycling rapidly. Your people just proved everything we feared about them. Dr. Chen met his gaze steadily. No, my people just proved that evil exists in this galaxy, and that someone needs to be willing to fight it. Council Prime Veltara called for order as the chamber erupted in debate. Some delegates demanded immediate action against humanity. Others argued for alliance. A few suggested that perhaps the galaxy needed protectors who could stand against threats like the Vraktar. But the debate was interrupted by an urgent communication from the Terra Nova. Captain Santos appeared on the main display, her face grim with determination. Honored Council, she began. I understand you've been watching our encounter with the Vraktar. I want to make something very clear. My people just faced a species that views all other life as food. They torture their prey for entertainment. They've probably wiped out other species before us. She paused, letting that sink in. Humanity is officially declaring war on the Vraktar swarm. We will return with sufficient force to eliminate this threat permanently. No other species should have to face what we face today. The communication ended, leaving the council in stunned silence. Dr. Chen stood slowly. You wanted to test humanity's predator instincts, she said quietly. Congratulations. You've awakened them. 3 months after the Kepler 442 incident, the Galactic Council chamber hummed with tension as emergency sessions continued around the clock. Humanity's declaration of war against the Vraktar had sent shockwaves through civilized space, but what followed had shaken the very foundations of galactic society. Ambassador Zethkar stood before a holographic display showing the latest intelligence reports from human space. His crystalline breathing apparatus worked overtime as he struggled to process what they were witnessing. In 93 standard days, he announced to the assembled delegates, humanity has mobilized the largest military force in recorded galactic history. The statistics were staggering. Earth's industrial capacity had been converted to wartime production with efficiency that defied understanding. Shipyards that had been building colony vessels now churned out warships. Research facilities that had focused on peaceful exploration were developing weapons technology that surpassed anything in the Council's archives. How is this possible? Demanded Ambassador Quillnex, her tentacles writhing with anxiety. 3 months ago, humanity barely had a dozen exploration vessels. Now they're reporting a fleet of over 2,000 warships. Dr. Chen, still humanity's sole representative on the Council, stood to address the chamber. The past 3 months had aged her visibly, but her voice carried steel that hadn't been there before. When you decided to test humanity, she said, you made one crucial miscalculation. You assumed we would react like any other species you've encountered. You thought we would be frightened into submission or seek protection from stronger allies. She gestured to the display showing human fleet movements. Instead, you reminded us of something we had almost forgotten. Sometimes the only way to ensure peace is to be prepared for war. The transformation of human society had been remarkable to observe. On Earth, every major nation had united under a single military command structure. Colonial worlds had volunteered their entire populations for war production. Even civilian scientists had joined military research programs, their peaceful projects set aside to develop weapons capable of killing Vraktar. But what truly terrified the Council was the psychological profile emerging from human space. Dr. Vextai, the galaxy's leading expert on predator psychology, had been studying human behavior since the incident began. The humans are exhibiting what they call righteous fury, he reported to the Council. Unlike typical predatory behavior, which is driven by hunger or territorial instinct, humans are motivated by what they perceive as moral imperative. The implications were staggering. Predators typically stopped hunting when their immediate needs were satisfied. But humans driven by moral conviction might not stop until they had eliminated what they perceived as evil entirely. They're not just planning to defeat the Vraktar, Dr. Vextai continued. They're planning to exterminate them completely. Council Prime Veltara had been silent throughout most of these sessions, but now she spoke with visible concern. Have there been any attempts at diplomatic contact with human leadership? Zethkar's throat sacs deflated with something resembling shame. All diplomatic overtures have been rejected. Human leadership has stated that the Council's deliberate exposure of civilians to Vraktar attack constitutes an act of war. The Council chamber erupted in shocked chittering and electromagnetic pulses. Several species had never considered that their test might be viewed as an aggressive act by humanity. They view us as enemies, whispered one delegate. Worse, Dr. Chen replied. They view you as conspirators. You deliberately placed 50,000 innocent civilians in mortal danger to satisfy your curiosity about human nature. In human terms, that makes you accessories to attempted genocide. The truth was even more complex than the Council realized. Human intelligence services had spent 3 months analyzing the Kepler 442 incident, and they had uncovered the full scope of the Council's manipulation. The jamming of warning signals, the deliberate concealment of Vraktar presence, the decision to observe rather than intervene, all of it had been documented and transmitted throughout human space. Captain Santos, now promoted to admiral and commanding the human expeditionary force, had become something of a folk hero among her own species. Her final transmission from Kepler 442 had been broadcast on every human world, and the response had been unprecedented. For the first time in their history, humanity had a common enemy and a unified purpose. The ancient tribalism that had divided them for millennia had been replaced by something far more dangerous: species-wide determination to protect their own. The Council's monitoring stations reported that human war production was still accelerating. Military academies that had been training exploration officers were now graduating combat specialists. Civilian industries had been converted to produce everything from personal armor to orbital bombardment systems. Most disturbing of all, humans were displaying their characteristic adaptability. They were studying every piece of intelligence about the Vraktar, learning their weaknesses and developing weapons specifically designed to exploit them. The bioweapons that had terrorized other species for centuries were being countered by human technology, designed for one purpose: killing Vraktar efficiently. They're not just preparing for battle, observed another delegate. They're preparing for extermination. Dr. Chen nodded grimly. The Vraktar made the mistake of convincing humanity that coexistence is impossible. When humans reach that conclusion, they don't fight for territory or resources. They fight for survival, and they don't stop fighting until the threat is eliminated completely. The intelligence reports from human space painted a picture of a civilization transforming itself for total war. Children were being taught Vraktar biology in schools. Civilian contractors were developing new weapon systems. Even human entertainment media had shifted to focus on preparation for the coming conflict. This is unprecedented, Dr. Vextai noted. Most species, when faced with existential threat, fragment into competing factions. Humans are doing the opposite. They're becoming more unified, more focused, more dangerous. The Vraktar themselves seemed unaware of what was approaching. Queen Zithtak's swarm continued its normal patterns of predation and expansion, treating the human encounter as a minor curiosity. They had driven off soft creatures before. What made these any different? But human intelligence had penetrated even the swarm's communications. They knew the location of every hive world, every breeding facility, every staging area for Vraktar expansion. The humans weren't just planning to defend themselves. They were planning to strike at the heart of Vraktar civilization. The human fleet will reach Vraktar space in approximately 30 standard days, Zethkar reported. Their formation suggests they intend to assault the primary hive world directly. Ambassador Quillnex made sounds of distress. A direct assault on a hive world? That's never been attempted. The defensive capabilities alone are designed to repel conventional attacks by typical galactic species, Dr. Chen interrupted. But humans aren't typical, and they're not planning a conventional attack. The truth was that human military planners had studied every recorded encounter with the Vraktar over the past 3 centuries. They had identified patterns, weaknesses, and tactical errors that previous species had made. Most importantly, they had recognized that every previous assault had failed because other species tried to fight the Vraktar on equal terms. Humans had no intention of fighting fairly. The weapons being loaded onto human warships were unlike anything in galactic arsenals. Biowarfare agents designed to target Vraktar physiology specifically, kinetic bombardment systems capable of sterilizing entire continents, psychological warfare tools that could disrupt hive mind communications. They're not planning a military campaign, realized Dr. Vexatai with growing horror. They're planning xenocide. The word hung in the chamber like a toxic cloud. Xenocide, the deliberate extermination of an entire species, was considered the ultimate crime against galactic civilization. It hadn't been attempted in over a millennium. The humans believe it's justified, Dr. Chen said quietly. The Vraktar have proven they view all other life as prey. They torture their victims for entertainment. They've wiped out countless species over their evolutionary history. From humanity's perspective, they're not just enemies. They're a plague that needs to be eradicated. The Council faced an impossible choice. They could attempt to intervene, risking war with humanity. They could allow the xenocide to proceed, abandoning their principles. Or they could try to find some middle ground that might preserve both species. But as they debated, reports continued to stream in from human space. The fleet was nearly ready. Training was complete. Production quotas had been exceeded. In 30 days, humanity would deliver its answer to the question the Council had asked. What was humanity's true nature when their predator instincts were awakened? The galaxy was about to find out. The human fleet that emerged from hyperspace at the edge of Vraktar Prime's system was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. 2,300 vessels arranged in perfect formation, their hulls gleaming with weapons that defied conventional understanding of space warfare. Admiral Santos stood on the bridge of the UES Retribution, the flagship of humanity's first and last crusade against the Vraktar. Around her, the bridge crew worked with deadly efficiency, their faces showing the calm determination that had come to characterize humanity at war. All ships report ready, Admiral, announced her tactical officer. Long-range sensors confirm multiple hive cities on the primary continent. Santos nodded, studying the tactical display that showed a world infested with nearly 1 billion Vraktar. Queen Zithtak's primary hive was the heart of their civilization, the breeding ground that had spawned swarms throughout this sector of space. In the council chambers, emergency broadcasting equipment carried live feeds from both human and Vraktar sources. The delegates watched in horrified fascination as 2 apex predator species prepared for total war. The humans could still withdraw, Ambassador Quillnex said hopefully. They've made their point. Surely they don't intend to go through with this. Dr. Chen's expression was stone. You still don't understand. Humans don't make empty threats. When we declare war, we mean it. On Vraktar Prime, Queen Zithtak felt the first stirrings of genuine concern ripple through the hive mind. The soft creatures from the sky had returned, but in numbers that defied comprehension. Her tactical analysts reported weapon signatures unlike anything in their experience. They seek to challenge the swarm in our own domain, she chittered to her war leaders. Show them why that is impossible. The Vraktar defense fleet rose from the planet's surface like a living cloud. Millions of bioships, grown rather than built, swarmed toward the human formation. Each vessel was a perfect killing machine, evolved over millennia to destroy other spacecraft with maximum efficiency. Defensive screen deployment complete, reported Queen Zithtak's fleet commander. The soft creatures will be consumed within the hour. But as the 2 fleets closed, something unprecedented happened. The human ships didn't engage in traditional space combat. Instead, they began broadcasting on frequencies that penetrated directly into Vraktar bioship nervous systems. Dr. Foster, now humanity's chief xenobiologist and psychological warfare specialist, had spent 3 months developing weapons that attacked the enemy's greatest strength, their hive-mind connection. Psychic disruption wave deployed, she reported to Admiral Santos. Vraktar coordination should be compromised in 3, 2, 1. The effect was immediate and devastating. Vraktar bioships began attacking each other as their hive-mind connection fractured under the psychic assault. Millions of years of evolution that had created perfect coordination suddenly became a liability, as confused signals flooded the neural network. In the council chamber, delegates watched in shocked silence as the mighty Vraktar fleet tore itself apart without human ships firing a single conventional weapon. "How is this possible?" gasped Ambassador Zethkar. "The Vraktar hive mind has never been successfully disrupted." "Because no one ever understood it well enough to attack it properly," Dr. Chen replied. "Humans don't just fight their enemies. They study them, learn their weaknesses, and exploit them. The psychological warfare was only the beginning. As the Vraktar fleet destroyed itself in confusion, human ships began the next phase of their assault. Instead of targeting military installations, they struck at the planet's ecosystem itself. Orbital bombardment platforms released bio-warfare agents specifically designed to target Vraktar physiology. The atmosphere of Vraktar Prime began to change as the agents spread, becoming toxic to the native species while remaining harmless to other forms of life. Queen Zithtuk felt terror for the first time in her existence as reports flooded in from across her world. The soft creatures weren't just attacking her swarm, they were making her entire planet uninhabitable for her kind. "This is impossible," she shrieked through the hive network. "No species fights this way, but humans did fight this way." They had studied every military campaign in their own history, learned from every victory and defeat. When faced with an enemy that couldn't be reasoned with, they didn't seek honorable combat. They sought total victory through any means necessary. The bio-warfare agents were followed by targeted strikes against hive cities. Human weapons, guided by months of intelligence gathering, struck with surgical precision at breeding chambers, command nodes, and resource centers. Each strike was designed not just to kill, but to cripple the swarm's ability to function. Dr. Torres, the xenobiologist who had tried to make peaceful contact, now coordinated the systematic destruction of Vraktar civilization. His intimate knowledge of their biology guided weapons that targeted their reproductive cycles, their food sources, their very ability to survive. "Hive Complex 7 has been neutralized," he reported with clinical detachment. "Estimated Vraktar casualties 3 million. No human losses." In the council chamber, the scale of the destruction was becoming clear. This wasn't a battle. It was extermination conducted with scientific precision. "They're committing xenocide," whispered Dr. Vexthai. "Complete and systematic extermination of an entire species." "Yes," Dr. Chen agreed quietly. "They are." The human assault continued for 18 hours. Methodical, relentless, utterly without mercy. Every hive city was destroyed. Every breeding facility was sterilized. Every Vraktar stronghold was reduced to radioactive ash. Queen Zithtak, in her final moments, understood what had happened. The soft creatures had never been prey at all. They were predators of a type her species had never encountered. Apex hunters who used intelligence rather than instinct, who planned rather than reacted, who could turn an enemy's strength into weakness. The last transmission from Vraktar Prime was Queen Zithtak's death scream, broadcast across the galaxy as her hive mind collapsed forever. When it was over, Admiral Santos stood before the tactical display showing a dead world. Vraktar Prime, which had been teeming with life hours before, was now silent. The bio-warfare agents had dissipated, leaving behind a planet that could eventually support other forms of life, but would never again harbor the swarm. "Ma'am," her communications officer reported, "we're receiving surrender transmissions from 17 Vraktar colonies throughout the sector." Santos nodded grimly. "Relay standard terms. Complete disarmament, relocation to designated worlds under human supervision, and submission to genetic modification that will eliminate their predatory instincts. And if they refuse?" Santos looked at the dead world on her display. "Then they share their queen's fate." In the council chamber, the delegates sat in stunned silence as reports confirmed the impossible. In less than a day, humanity had not just defeated the Vraktar swarm, they had destroyed it so completely that it would never threaten another species again. Ambassador Zethkar turned to Dr. Chen with something resembling awe. Your species just eliminated a threat that has terrorized the galaxy for centuries. Dr. Chen met his gaze steadily. Yes, we did. And now you understand what humanity truly is when we're awakened to righteous purpose. She stood and addressed the entire council. You wanted to test our predator instincts. You wanted to see what we would become when threatened. Now you know. We become whatever is necessary to protect innocent life from evil. The chamber remained silent as the implications sank in. Humanity had just demonstrated military capabilities that exceeded the combined forces of the entire Galactic Council. They had shown tactical innovation, strategic thinking, and ruthless efficiency that no other species could match. More importantly, they had proven that they would use these capabilities when they believed it was morally justified. What happens now? Ambassador Quillnex asked quietly. Dr. Chen's smile was both warm and terrifying. Now, honored delegates, we discuss the future of this galaxy, because whether you like it or not, humanity is now its protector. 6 months after the Vraktar extinction, as history would record it, the Galactic Council convened for the most important session in its 1,000-year existence. The chamber had been reconfigured to accommodate humanity's new status, with Dr. Chen no longer sitting as a lone representative, but as the leader of a full diplomatic delegation. The transformation of galactic politics had been swift and absolute. News of humanity's decisive victory over the swarm had spread throughout civilized space, carrying with it a message that no species could ignore. A new apex predator had emerged, and it was benevolent to those who deserved protection. Admiral Santos, now bearing the title of Supreme Commander of Galactic Defense Forces, stood beside Dr. Chen as the session began. The sight of a human military officer in the council chamber would have been unthinkable a year ago. Now it seemed not just appropriate, but necessary. Honored delegates, Dr. Chen began, her voice carrying the authority of someone who spoke for a species that had reshaped the galaxy. We gather today to formalize humanity's role as protector of civilized space. The response was immediate and unanimous. Every species that had previously feared humanity now sought their protection. The Vorthak Collective, the Hegemony representatives, the Pacifist Union, all had formally requested inclusion in what humans termed the Protected Species Accord. Ambassador Zethkar, his crystalline breathing apparatus cycling with what might have been relief, spoke for many when he addressed the chamber. 6 months ago, we feared humanity would become conquerors. Instead, you have become guardians. The evidence supported his words. In the aftermath of the Vraktar extinction, 17 separate predator species had attempted to expand into formerly swarm-controlled territory. All had been met by human fleets and given the same choice: peaceful coexistence or complete destruction. None had chosen destruction. Dr. Vexthai, the galactic psychology expert, presented his analysis of humanity's post-war behavior. Remarkably, humans have shown no interest in territorial expansion or resource acquisition. Their only demand has been the establishment of what they call safety zones around inhabited worlds. Indeed, human ships now patrolled the galaxy with a simple mission: protect the innocent and eliminate threats to peaceful civilization. Their methods were both highly effective and terrifyingly precise. Ambassador Quillnex's tentacles writhed with something that might have been gratitude. The Karathi raiders that had terrorized our shipping lanes for decades were eliminated in a single engagement. The humans didn't even demand payment or territory in return. Admiral Santos nodded at the acknowledgement. Humanity has no interest in ruling other species. We learned long ago that diversity of thought and culture makes us all stronger. What we cannot tolerate is the strong preying upon the weak. The human military doctrine that had emerged from the Vraktar campaign was unlike anything in galactic history. They didn't seek to occupy conquered territories or subjugate defeated enemies. Instead, they offered a choice: abandon predatory behavior and join galactic civilization, or face complete extinction. The Zalani Horde chose cooperation, reported Dr. Chen. After our demonstration of capabilities, they voluntarily submitted to psychological modification that eliminated their aggressive tendencies. They're now contributing valuable mining expertise to several worlds. The Crimson Talon pirates chose differently, Admiral Santos added matter-of-factly. They no longer exist. The casual way she delivered news of an entire species extinction sent chills through the chamber. But it also reinforced the fundamental truth: that now governed galactic politics. Humanity's protection came with absolute conditions. Council Prime Veltara had spent months grappling with the new reality. What of species that fall somewhere between peaceful and predatory? Many civilizations have engaged in warfare without being inherently evil. Dr. Chen smiled, the expression carrying both warmth and steel. Humans understand the difference between conflict and predation. We've fought wars among ourselves for millennia. What we cannot accept is species that view others as prey to be hunted for. Pleasure. The distinction was crucial, and had become the foundation of what historians would call the human doctrine. Traditional warfare, territorial disputes, and resource conflicts were considered internal matters that species needed to resolve themselves. But predation, the hunting of other sapient beings for food, sport, or sadistic pleasure, brought immediate and overwhelming human response. The Vraktar tortured their prey before consumption, Admiral Santos explained. The Crimson Talon pirates kept slave pens of captured beings for entertainment. These weren't military conflicts. They were crimes against sapient life itself. Dr. Vexitai presented his analysis of human decision-making processes. Humans appear to evaluate threats based on intention rather than capability. A militarily powerful species that respects other life is considered an ally. A weak species that preys upon others is considered a target for elimination. The psychological profile that emerged painted a picture of humanity as the galaxy's immune system, identifying and eliminating threats to the broader community of sapient life while leaving healthy civilizations untouched. But perhaps the most remarkable development was how other species had begun to change in response to human protection. The Pacifist Union, freed from the constant threat of predator raids, had begun expanding their peaceful colonies throughout the galaxy. The hegemony had redirected their military research toward medical and agricultural applications. Crime rates have dropped to near zero on worlds under human protection, reported Ambassador Quilnex, not because of harsh enforcement, but because everyone knows that predatory behavior will result in human intervention. The enforcement mechanism was elegantly simple. Human monitoring stations positioned throughout the galaxy maintained constant surveillance for signs of predatory activity. The response to confirmed threats was swift, overwhelming, and final. We've established protocols for species that wish to reform, Dr. Chen explained. Psychological therapy, genetic modification, and cultural rehabilitation programs are available for any group that sincerely wishes to abandon predatory behavior. And for those who refuse? Asked Zethkar, though he already knew the answer. Admiral Santos's expression didn't change. We found that most predator species reconsider their position when shown recordings of Vraktar Prime. The dead world had become humanity's most effective diplomatic tool. The former swarm homeworld, now a silent monument to the price of predatory behavior, served as a constant reminder of what awaited species that chose to prey upon others. But what of humanity itself? Asked a delegate from the Crystalline Consortium. Who protects the galaxy from you? It was the question that everyone had been thinking but few dared to ask. Dr. Chen had been waiting for it. Humanity protects the galaxy from humanity, she replied simply. Our own history teaches us the dangers of unchecked power. We've established the Human Ethics Council, composed of representatives from every protected species, to monitor our own actions and hold us accountable. The announcement sent ripples of surprise through the chamber. No apex predator species in galactic history had voluntarily submitted to external oversight. Any species that believes humanity has overstepped our bounds can petition the Ethics Council for review, Admiral Santos added. If our actions are found unjustified, we will make appropriate reparations. Dr. Vextai studied his psychological profiles with growing amazement. Humans are the first apex predator species to demonstrate self-regulation. Your predatory instincts are balanced by what you call conscience, an internal mechanism that prevents you from becoming the very evil you fight against. The session concluded with the formal signing of the Galactic Protection Accord. 47 species pledged to maintain peaceful relations with each other under human oversight. In return, humanity committed to defending them against any predatory threat that might emerge. As the delegates filed out of the chamber, Ambassador Zethkar approached Dr. Chen privately. A year ago, we feared humanity would conquer the galaxy. Instead, you've made it safer than it's been in millennia. Dr. Chen smiled, remembering the terror in this chamber when humanity's true nature had been revealed. You asked what humans become when our predator instincts are awakened. The answer is simple. We become whatever the innocent need us to be. And if no threats remain? If you eliminate all predatory species in the galaxy? Dr. Chen's expression grew thoughtful. Then we return to what we were before you tested us. Explorers, scientists, dreamers. We never wanted to be warriors, Ambassador. You made us warriors out of necessity. As she left the chamber, Dr. Chen reflected on the strange turn of events that had transformed humanity from feared unknowns to trusted protectors. The Council's test had indeed revealed humanity's true nature, not as conquerors or destroyers, but as guardians who would fight against evil with the same passion they brought to creating beauty. Above them, human ships continued their eternal patrol of galactic space, watching for threats that might never come, ensuring that the innocent could sleep safely under the protection of awakened apex predators who had chosen to serve rather than to rule. The galaxy had learned what humanity became when their predator instincts were awakened. The answer is simple. We become whatever the innocent need us to be. And if no threats remain, if you eliminate all predatory species in the galaxy, Dr. Chen's expression grew thoughtful. Then we return to what we were before you tested us. Explorers, scientists, dreamers. We never wanted to be warriors, Ambassador. You made us warriors out of necessity. As she left the chamber, Dr. Chen reflected on the strange turn of events that had transformed humanity from feared unknowns to trusted protectors. The Council's test had indeed revealed humanity's true nature, not as conquerors or destroyers, but as guardians who would fight against evil with the same passion they brought to creating beauty. Above them, human ships continued their eternal patrol of galactic space, watching for threats that might never come, ensuring that the innocent could sleep safely under the protection of awakened apex predators who had chosen to serve rather than to rule. The galaxy had learned what humanity became when their predator instincts were awakened. They became its shield against the darkness and its sword against evil. They became exactly what the universe needed them to be.